Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a Diablo and Overwatch news wrap-up video where we talk about the happenings of the week. And we've got a couple exciting things to talk about this week. Let's start with the Diablo news, so if you're here for Overwatch, then jump ahead to the time indicated above. I'll just wait here in the meantime. Okay, so kicking things off with the big Diablo-related thing I wanted to discuss this week. It all ties back to last week when we spoke about the newest member of the Diablo team. His name is Harrison G. Pink. He tweeted about joining the Diablo team, and we'll circle back to him a little later. But this got me to do something that I hadn't done in a while, which was really dive into the job postings for Diablo. And I actually ended up doing an audit of all the job postings that have gone up and been removed since the start of 2017. Now, it's difficult to track down these things, particularly the job postings that were removed. It's also difficult to find out exactly when job postings went up, but to the best of my research, there are at least 16 job postings that have gone down, that have been removed. In other words, that have been filled, positions that have been filled. In other words, since the start of 2017, Blizzard has hired at minimum, 16 new people for the Diablo team. And likely far more, because I'm sure there's job postings that I missed. And then factor in that job postings have been going up for well over a year, and you get even more people that have been brought onto the Diablo team. Now, I'll give you a rundown of the 16 positions that I found that were filled in 2017. We've got Game Design Manager, we've got Software Engineer Graphics, Senior Visual Effects Artist, Senior Environment Artist, Outsource Manager for Art and Animation, Software Engineer for Reliability, Senior Software Engineer for Gameplay, Administrative Assistant for the Diablo team, Senior User Interface Artist, Software Engineer for Server, Art Manager, Technical Artist for Environment, Outsource Supervisor for Environmental Art, Senior Game Producer, Senior Level Designer, and Senior Software Engineer for Servers. Now, apart from these 16, there are 7 job listings that are still there currently, and those 7 are Software Engineer Tools, Software Engineer for Live Operations, Software Engineer for Automation, Creative Director, Technical Character Artist, Production Director for the Unannounced Project, and Senior Environment Artist. Every job posting that I've covered has been under the Diablo section of the job postings without specifying Diablo 3. Some, like the Production Director, outright state that it's for the Unannounced Project, whereas for others it's just implied. Now, the last time we really dove into a discussion about the Diablo job postings was probably a year ago. And back then, most of the jobs being posted reflected a game that was in very early conceptualization stages. It was only around October 2016 that they actually hired a game director. But now, these job postings that I've covered here seem to suggest to me a game whose development is hitting full stride. We're still missing a creative director, we're still missing a production director, which are obviously very important positions. But overall, they've been assembling a team and they seem poised to hit the ground running for when they finally get the last heads of the project in position. But what do you folks think? Do any of you still think that there's no new game in the works? That these 16 plus hires and these 7 additional new job postings are just for Diablo 3? Sound off in the comments. Now, circling back to Harrison G. Pink, who is the one confirmed new member who has outright stated that he has joined the Diablo team. He didn't specify Diablo 3. He's a senior designer who has a background in narrative-heavy games, and some people assumed that he was being brought onto the team for Diablo 4. Though in my video I expressed that there is some doubt about that the possibility exists that he could just be joining the Diablo 3 team. Now, whenever I post a video, I also schedule a tweet to go live alongside it. And who replied to that tweet? None other than Harrison G. Pink himself. This was his reply. Now, this can be interpreted in so many different ways that it's impossible to divine any meaning from it. With this, is he expressing that he finds the very notion that he might be on the Diablo 4 team absurd? Or is he trying to misdirect us by making it seem like he thinks it's absurd? Is this response conveying an "oops, you caught me"? We have no idea. But what is most noteworthy here is that he replied at all. So, seeing my opening, I replied to him asking if he was willing to talk about his new role on the Diablo team. And he didn't reply. onto some Diablo community news. What is the community upset about this week? The new Greater Rift levels are garbage. Players are becoming increasingly frustrated with the terrible density and all the dead ends in the new levels that were introduced with the Necromancer pack, only in Greater Rifts. Visually, they're beautiful, and they work great as bounty regions, but once they spawn as Greater Rifts, they are just terrible. More complaints. The Challenge Rift of the week is garbage. It seems with the exception of the European server, the Challenge Rift is too difficult, too bad, people are just complaining about it a lot. This is perhaps the worst week for Challenge Rifts, or at least Challenge Rift complaints. Skeletons are garbage. People are complaining about Command Skeletons not working properly, and Skeletal Mage not working properly, wandering off, not attacking targets. But what do you guys think? Have any of these things that I've listed been a problem for you? Do you agree with the community complaints, or do you think everything is a-okay? Last bit of Diablo community news here before we move into Overwatch. Alkaiser has returned.
Hey folks, Rhykker here.
Now, if you're somehow not familiar with Alkaiser, he is perhaps the most legendary Diablo 3 player. He is arguably the best Diablo 3 player. He was the world's first Paragon 100, way back in vanilla when Paragon 100 was the highest Paragon level to achieve. He was the creator of what came to be called the Alkaiser run, which was a highly efficient XP run in the game, possibly the best XP run in the game. This was back before Adventure Mode, when you had specific areas to farm in order to maximize your XP gain. Now, Alkaiser played a ton of Diablo for the longest time. It's been maybe a year or two now that he's not really been into the scene as much anymore, but he comes back periodically, and he came back for the start of the new season. He dominated the leaderboards, proving that he still is the best Diablo 3 player, even though he doesn't play the game anymore, and unfortunately, he'll just be sticking around long enough for the new Path of Exile expansion to launch, which will be next week. On to Overwatch news. The new Overwatch patch has released this week, bringing with it Doomfist, and launching alongside that was the Doomfist proper launch video, in which we got to see Doomfist kicking the asses of the OR-15 robots. Now we know exactly how that Numbani airport got destroyed. I mean, we knew, but now we got to actually see it happen. Other important things coming with this patch were the loot box update. Now you're gonna get fewer dupes, and to compensate for that, you're going to get more credits. There's a new highlight feature that allows you to save highlights, and there's some balance changes that we covered in our previous video. Now, an interesting theory cropped up this week about the next hero, and this comes from Overwatch streamer Sarawatch. She points to the comic that released that we covered in last week's video, and she points specifically to the scene where they are at the casino and Widowmaker is gambling. She's playing craps. Sarawatch suggests that this whole interaction is entirely unnecessary, just serves to distract from the main storyline. And so because of that, she feels there is some secret message hidden there, and that message is a release date. When the dice are thrown, the two numbers that come up are 7 and then 11. And in France, which is where they were, and in fact in most of the world, when you are writing out a date numerically, the first number corresponds not to the month, but the day. And then the second number is the month. So 7/11 would be November 7th. So Sarawatch speculates that November 7th will be the release date of the next hero. Now we know that BlizzCon is November 3rd and 4th, and the 7th is the first Tuesday after BlizzCon. We also know that a new hero releases every 3 to 4 months, so this time frame would fit from Doomfist to the new hero being on November 7th. We also know that in general, Blizzard tends to patch on Tuesdays, though this is not always the case. But we do know that Sombra released on November 15th, which was the first Tuesday after BlizzCon 2016. So I do believe that November 7th is a very plausible date for the release of the new hero. Although I feel that it's just coincidental that you can find the number 7/11 in the comic. But what do you guys think? Was this a hidden clue or just happenstance? Do you think the new hero will come November 7th? Moving on to more Overwatch news, there are improvements coming to the reporting and penalty system. Quoting community manager Lilira from the Battle.net forums, effective immediately, we will be issuing increased penalties to players in response to verified reports of bad behavior. That means anything from abusive chat, harassment, in-game spam, match inactivity, i.e. intentional AFKing, and griefing. Players in violation will be silenced, suspended, or even banned. And Lilira went on to say that in the future, there will be a system in place whereby you will get notified if someone that you report gets penalized. And I think this is perhaps the best part of this news. Too often do we feel that when we report someone, nothing ever happens to them. And this disincentivizes us from using the report function. Knowing that reporting actually makes a difference will lead to more and better self-policing of the community. But what do you guys think about that? Moving on to some possible buffs to Junkrat and Roadhog. Principal designer Jeff Goodman was stating that they were toying around with different things internally, and for Junkrat, they are increasing the charges on Concussion Mine to 2. In other words, you can hold 2 charges of the mine. They are also looking at making his ult better, either by making it move faster or by increasing its health, but not both. As for Roadhog, they're looking at making him take 50% less damage while he's healing himself, and that he can move at full speed while healing himself. I personally think that Junkrat change sounds awesome, and the Roadhog change sounds, I mean, it's not bad, but it doesn't seem to fix the problem that people are having with Roadhog now, post-nerf. It just seems to make him more annoying. But what do you folks think? Some news in esports, the Overwatch League is guaranteeing players a minimum of a $50,000 salary. Again, this is just a minimum, and on top of that there will be benefits, health insurance, a retirement savings plan, and they'll also be getting at least 50% of prize money earned through the Overwatch League. And if you want to know how much money that is, the winning team of Season 1 will win $1 million, and that's out of a total prize pool of $3.5 million. Another thing to factor into the $50,000 salary is that the organization, the team, pays for lodging. So for a lot of people, your rent, your mortgage, that's a huge chunk of your salary. Not an issue for professional Overwatch players. Now this is a lot of money being thrown around here, which is great for esports, it's great for the scene, it's great for attempting to grow the scene, but it's also a huge risk. If this doesn't bring in enough views, it's gonna be a spectacular failure. What do you guys think about esports in general? Do you want to see competitive Overwatch become the new esport? Moving on, we got word from lead Overwatch writer Michael Chu that there are no ARG plans in the works at the moment, but there will be an upcoming Zarya comic. I'm a little sad that there's no ARG. I really enjoyed the Sombra ARG, despite it running too long. I loved the concept of the ARG. I wish Blizzard would do more ARGs, but just not drag them on with no payoff for so long. What do you guys think about that? Do you want more ARG, or are you glad that it is done, over with? And the last thing that we'll talk about today is that DSP Stanky is going to be leaving the Overwatch scene. If you don't know who this is, he was considered by many to be the best Lucio player in the world, or at least in North America. Now, while it's difficult to say whether he actually was the best, he was certainly always up there, and he was highly visible. He was, at the very least, the most popular Lucio player in the world. He started off as being the best console player for Lucio, and people just kept shit-talking him, basically saying, lol, console, that's why you're good. You would be terrible on PC, or try joining PC where, you know, the real boys play. Well, he moved on to PC, and became the best PC Lucio as well, proving his mettle. So basically, DSP Stanky is legendary as a Lucio player, and he's going to be moving on to being a variety streamer as opposed to just an Overwatch streamer. He's going to take a month or more to transition away from Overwatch, slowly including more streams of other games. And his reason is, quote, I can feel my own personal enjoyment of the game fading. Now, DSP Stanky was a wonderful member of the community. He was a great guy. He set a great example. He was respectful. He was a nice person. And the top players really serve as role models for some of the younger players. So the community will certainly miss DSP Stanky. I do hope he finds his spark again and comes back to Overwatch at some point. But you can't blame him for getting burned out and moving on. And that wraps up our news of the week. Remember to leave a comment with your thoughts on any and all of the stories that we've covered in this video. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch and Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo and Overwatch content.